Are you someone with scoliosis who wonders if there's a better way to treat scoliosis that includes nutrition? Do you wonder if there's a better way to eat that will help your aches and pains and the progression of scoliosis? I'm Dave Butler, and today on this episode, we're going to talk about nutrition and the way that nutrition plays a factor in scoliosis and scoliosis treatment. I talked to Sarah Steed, who's a nutritionist, who talks about bone health, talks about inflammation, and talks about many ways that we can reduce the effects of scoliosis on the body through nutrition. I think this is an important aspect of health and kind of a neglected aspect of scoliosis treatment. And I'm excited to talk to her and share with you the stuff that she recommends to reduce aches and pains and improve the quality of life with scoliosis. So if you're interested in nutrition or interested in better treatment of scoliosis in general, this is a great episode for you to listen to. So let's get to it, and here's Sarah. Okay, welcome to the podcast. I'm here with Sarah Steed. She's a nutritionist that we've been talking to about doing some nutrition related to scoliosis, and I'm really excited to have her here. I met Sarah for the first time. She moved into our neighborhood, and I did not know she was a nutritionist until we got talking, and I'm like, hey, we actually have been looking for some options with nutrition in our scoliosis patient. And so she agreed to be on this podcast and share her knowledge. So, Sarah, you want to introduce yourself, kind of tell us your background?
Yeah. So my name is Sarah Steed. I refer to myself as a nutrition and exercise consultant. I'm also trained as an emotional release therapist. I have over 25 years experience in the industry, and I primarily specialize in body transformation, and metabolic health and really helping women get off the diet roller coaster. But my work isn't just about fat loss, it's about true body alignment inside and out. I first actually got into this industry or into this field because of my own health struggles. I spent time in Russia as a missionary, and when I got back, I was incredibly nutrient deficient. I was a mess that way. And let's just say I brought back more than just memories. I brought back parasites, as one does, you know.
Oh, man.
But I really um, had to spend time healing myself through nutrition. And that experience really set me on this path of understanding how deeply food and nutrients impact every system in the body. And so as I built my career, I noticed that, especially in the entire weight loss and fitness industry, that it's primarily designed around research on men, and women aren't just small men, right? But we have
Right.
these hormonal fluctuations. We got metabolic shifts. We got different, our bodies respond to stress differently. Um, and so that affects everything from weight loss to energy levels to bone health. And so I really dug deeper and I studied not just nutrition and exercise, but also stress and mindset and emotions, and then how they impact the body's ability to heal and transform. So my work is about getting really to the root cause, whether that's chronic inflammation, whether it's hormone imbalance, whether even it's subconscious beliefs that keep people stuck. And um, so this really applies to everyone, but anyone dealing with scoliosis and back pain and spinal abnormalities, because the spine, it's not just a stack of bones, right? It's a living system. And so the way we eat, the way we move, even the way we think, it can either support our body or stress it. So um, that's really has been my approach and my focus on really nourishing and aligning the body from the inside out.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I totally agree that it's so integrated. All of our systems and all of our systems are related to our nutrition, and they're so interwoven
Yeah.
that yeah. And we can definitely tell that you are passionate about this.
I am. I love it. It's been a big passion of mine for a long time, not only because I've dealt with, my own struggles personally, but it's a universal issue. Everyone deals with pain, everyone deals with um, health issues in one form or another, and so it's definitely something that we all struggle with.
Yeah. And it's interesting because some of my patients who have chronic pain, sometimes I feel like I'm not addressing the whole picture. I'm addressing the weaknesses and the tightness and the spinal deformity and things like that. But the nutrition side is something that as PTs we don't really get a ton of training on, and so we're kind
Yeah.
of trying to figure that out, and not very well, I would say. And so
Mm.
getting that other side of things, the nutrition side, the health and wellness side, I think that's a crucial piece. So I'm excited that
Mhm.
you're passionate about it and excited to talk more about that. So one thing that people may be asking is, why should I listen to Sarah? What makes you someone that people should listen to about nutrition?
That's a good question. And I would actually tell people I actually don't think people should listen to me. I think that they should actually listen to their own body. Um, what what I do is to help people decode what their body is telling them, whether it's pain, fatigue, inflammation, weight gain. These aren't just random. I believe that they're signals. Um, Information our body's trying to tell us. And when you learn to interpret the body's signals, I think that's when you can actually work with the body rather than fighting against it. Because a lot of times we fight against our bodies. We feel like they've betrayed us, when they're not functioning properly or how we want them to. And so I think it's really important to listen to the body. I think people also like what I have to say because I don't just repeat the same old advice, even though a lot of it is very helpful.
Yeah.
But I really like to break down what hasn't been working for a person, why, and then what to do instead. And I also, in my industry, I challenge the fear-based wellness, which is a big issue in my opinion. I think, this idea that you have to eliminate everything, that you have to cut out entire food groups, or live in restriction, that's just not sustainable in my mind. And I think it creates unnecessary stress. And stress is one of the biggest drivers of pain, by the way. It also drives inflammation and even weight gain,
Wow.
um, and sickness in general. And so if you're constantly in a state of fight or flight, your body's not going to heal. There's It reminds me when I actually had severe back and neck pain for 2 years, and it was debilitating. And it was at the very end of a very toxic relationship that I was in that I probably should have left far before I did. But um, to deal with this pain, I was going into different therapies. I was getting different, modalities up to 3 times a week just to deal with the pain. And it would offer relief briefly, but it wouldn't last. And so I remember I had driven myself to my lawyer's office actually to sign divorce papers. And I remember getting out of the car and being in so much pain. I could barely walk. And then I remember 2 weeks later, after signing those papers, I'm driving along the road and I see I'm passing one of the doctor's offices that I had gone to for a different modality for pain. And I instantly thought, oh gosh, I got to get in there. I hadn't been in there for a couple weeks with the chaos of filing for divorce and everything. And immediately, as soon as I had that thought, I was at a red light, and immediately I realized, oh my gosh, my neck and my back don't hurt. And I remember moving my neck around and being like, oh my gosh, when did they stop hurting? Because it was so chronic. Like I'd gotten to the point where I couldn't exercise. I had a hard time walking. I mean, I could walk. There was just pain associated with every single time I moved. And so what I learned from that experience is that pain is not always just physical. I think in a lot of instances it is, especially with scoliosis, but it can also be emotional. It can be mental. It can even be energetic. And so the people around you, the space that you live in, the thoughts that you repeat daily, all of those really impact how your body feels, and how it functions. And so that's why my approach isn't just about food and exercise, right? It's about
Mhm.
mindset, it's about stress management, um, it's about shifting the way you relate to your body.
Yeah, and it's interesting. There's so many different pieces to the puzzle that
Yeah,
is health,
it is.
and the
Yeah,
more pieces that we can get in the right place, the better. I mean,
yeah,
I see it all the time, stress like you're talking about affecting aches
yeah.
and pains and we need to address that as well. Sometimes I feel like I'm the wrong type of therapist for some of my patients, um
I doubt
but
that. But
yeah.
I know what you mean. I mean, there's so many different um modalities out there that, if we all come together, it can really help. And someone, I think there's just so many wonderful um, options for getting help and relief. But I love the specialty of especially what you do because it really offers the structural component of dealing with back pain is huge.
Yeah,
So
and I think the more we can work in conjunction
yeah.
with other, disciplines and other modalities, I think the better. That's actually why I purposefully left off the physical part of therapy in the name of my clinic because I wanted it to
Oh,
include more than just physical therapy.
I like that. I agree with that.
So yeah. So let's get into a little bit about scoliosis. I don't know if you
Yeah.
have any experience with scoliosis or it sounds like you've had experience with back and neck pain, which can
Well,
can be
personally,
very
I have.
similar.
Yeah. I don't have scoliosis personally, but my best friend and my niece do, and they were big time dancers when they were young. I feel like that tends to be an issue with a lot of dancers, which I've noticed. I'm curious what you think about that.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
So
Have
I wonder if we catch it more in dancers because
um,
I mean they're wearing leotards and you can see their
mhm,
back better and they're
mm.
usually a little skinnier so we can see the spine a little bit better or if the body type of dancers has more scoliosis prevalence.
Mm.
I don't know which one it is, but I definitely see a lot of dancers in the clinic with spine problems.
That is interesting. My daughter has it as well, and she's not a dancer, but she's
Hmm.
very active. And I've worked with women with scoliosis and, chronic back pain. I think one of the biggest game changers for them in my experience with them is reducing inflammation
Hmm.
because chronic inflammation it's like a slow burning fire in the body. It weakens the connective tissue, it stiffens the spine, speeds up degeneration.
Hmm.
And so and what fuels that fire is blood sugar spikes. I feel like that's the main thing. Also, nutrient deficiencies,
Hmm.
and even stress. And so when I work with someone who has back pain or scoliosis, I look at a couple things. First, are they absorbing the nutrients that their bones and ligaments need?
Hmm.
And then are their hormones helping or hurting their health? Um, and then are they stuck in like an inflammation cycle of poor blood sugar regulation or stress? And then once you get to that root cause, I think that's where the body becomes more resilient, not just in handling scoliosis, but I think in overall movement, also overall energy
Hmm.
and even pain management. So um, I think nutrition really gives your body the tools to heal, and then movement and helps just like you were saying, all of it together really integrates healing. And that's where, physical therapy is the game changer. And so integrating all these modalities really just gives a person all of the options for healing,
Hmm.
or gives the body all of the options to heal. And let's not forget stress because honestly, I feel like stress, I don't know, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just stressed right now. It could just be me, but I just think stress is honestly the gasoline to the inflammation fire. And so if you're dealing with scoliosis or back pain or, chronic health issues of one form or another, stress levels will always either help you or hurt you. And when I say help you, there's positive stress, right? There's eustress. So, like for example, exercise or physical therapy, that's a form of stress on the body, but it's a positive stress, right? Once
Yeah.
things get to a distress, that's when it's an issue.
And if you look around our society and what's going on, just in everyone's lives, I think our level of stress, not physical stress, the good kind that builds strong bodies, but the mental stress that doesn't allow for those things as well. I mean,
Right.
it's much more prevalent.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
that that's something that we need to address, and I think that's a multifaceted approach. That's not something that only one thing can help. So if
And
we
that's
dive a
true. And
little
that's,
deeper in, oh, go
go
ahead.
ahead. I was just going to comment. That's why it's important to listen to the body, right? Because
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, and that's what I find a lot of my patients don't listen to their body. They basically are telling their body what to do, and it should just do it and not complain. And and then you have the inflammation side of it that you've already talked about with
yeah,
inflammation is increased in the body, and then we have the body complaining about doing activity because it's not getting the right building blocks for what it needs. I mean, it's a cycle that so many people are stuck in.
yeah. And nutrition is it's it is a foundation, but the spine is not just a rigid structure.
Hmm.
It's a living tissue that's constantly responding to what you feed to it. And but food isn't the only thing we feed our bodies, right? We feed our bodies thoughts and beliefs and expectations, which are
Yeah,
just as powerful as food. So if you're constantly telling yourself that you are stiff or broken or your body isn't responding as it should, your body's constantly listening. And
yeah.
so when you nourish it though with possibility and the right nutrients and the right movements, um, strategically, then I believe that your body can adapt and stabilize.
Well, and it's interesting because I had a discussion with one of my therapists recently about how things are talked about in physical therapy and in medicine. So, for example, I have 30-year-olds that will have a spine surgeon tell them, well, you have a spine of a 70-year-old, or wow, I've never seen a spine this bad before.
Mhm.
And just that expectation
Mhm.
changes how they feel about their body.
Mhm.
And it's really interesting to me how just how we talk about things
Yeah.
affects how people view it, and how they view it affects how they feel.
Yeah.
And I think that's also with nutrition. If you are talking about it as, cutting out food groups, bad foods, stuff like that, it's like, maybe we should rephrase that and
Yeah.
reframe it so that
Yeah.
it's actually helpful.
I agree. I agree.
So,
Because I think that when we put the emphasis on this is bad, I can't have that, and it becomes restriction, that just increases stress, and stress leads to weight gain. I mean, you know what I mean? Or pain or whatever. It just leads to
yeah.
so many metabolic issues. And so I think when we can reframe what we do for our body and make it um, rather than something that is a problem,
Hmm.
see it as an opportunity for growth, I think that's when everything can change for us.
Yeah, totally agree. So
Yeah,
if we split up adolescents and adults, I know that in our discussions before, you had talked about you focus a lot on women and
right.
nutrition.
Hmm.
And obviously, you know what you're doing with men and nutrition as well, but we have to change things a bit when we're talking about females and nutrition.
Yeah,
In my experience, we have two groups. We have adolescents and we have adults. I mean, we have older adults and younger adults, but kind of give me an idea on what you would do differently with adolescents and adults.
sure. Okay, so for adolescents, I think it's a prime time to strengthen the spine. Okay, that's cute. That rhymed. Prime time to strengthen the spine. You
We're
should
going to
use
put that on a
that.
shirt.
We should make that a slogan for all the adolescents out there.
Yeah.
Um, but meaning to focus on bone building nutrients. And so for an adolescence, I would recommend calcium and vitamin D3 and vitamin K2 and magnesium.
Mm.
Also for adolescents, protein is a non-negotiable. And what's funny about that is I feel like the majority of adolescents, they eat a lot more processed foods, refined carbohydrates, and
Yeah.
they don't really eat the amount of protein that they should, especially the female adolescents.
Mm.
And just to let them know that bones are not just minerals. They're made of collagen, they're made of proteins. And so it's really important to eat protein. And again, I'm not talking about a protein only diet. You know, we need to have
Yeah.
balance. All of the macronutrients are essential, meaning protein, carbs, and fats. Um, but protein is going to be really important for you as you're growing, as your bones are developing. And the next thing I would recommend for adolescents is to cut inflammatory foods. So that's essentially going to be the majority of the processed foods,
Hmm.
and trying to prioritize whole foods, omega-3s, antioxidants. Um, I would basically stick with those and just, be active, live your life, enjoy it, have positive thoughts. For adults, let's see, I would, especially menopausal women, let's talk about them for a minute.
Hmm.
Um, the goal now shifts from bone building to protecting your bones in menopause.
Yeah.
Um, Especially as estrogen declines, your bones will weaken, and also your ligaments. And so I think if you already have issues with scoliosis, when you enter menopause, I would think that scoliosis progression becomes more likely. I don't know. What are your thoughts with that from your experience?
Yeah. So we actually see scoliosis progression in adolescents when they're growing, and
Mm,
and then menopause is the second one with hormone fluctuations.
yeah,
And so I think that's right on the money.
that's interesting. I do think for anybody, any adult, and even adolescents, but adults in general, blood sugar stability is going to be critical because high blood sugar, which we as a society, we chronically have the blood sugar spikes
Hmm.
and it's just all over the place. It's wild.
Yeah.
And that's just because of the typical American diet is not super healthy. We eat a lot of processed foods and things like that will really spike blood sugar. But the reason why I talk about blood sugar is because if you have chronically high blood sugar, it will lead to inflammation, and then that leads to faster degeneration. So as adults in general, especially if you have spinal abnormalities or scoliosis or bone issues or back pain or whatever, it's going to be really important to keep your blood sugar stable. Also for adults, I would say collagen is important and also vitamin C. These will help you uh, maintain your ligament and disc health, so bone health in general.
Hmm.
So that's what I would say to both of those populations.
So that they're definitely different. I mean, in different
Yes.
scenarios, but it doesn't, yeah, it definitely doesn't mean we're treating them the same. There's not a one size fits all diet for all
No.
patients with scoliosis. I mean, even individual patients need different things related to their nutrition. So that's definitely good to
Exactly.
know.
Yeah, I've never even had two clients that have been the same ever. The type of foods that their body responds to, the nutrients, even their likes and dislikes. I mean, everything's so different from one person to
Yeah.
another, even though overall, the body responds best to real high quality foods and things like that. But even in general, every single person has different goals, different needs, things like that. So it definitely is, when it comes to the body, it definitely needs to be customized. Modalities need to be customized to the body. You
Yeah.
can't have a generic program. It just doesn't work.
Well, I think that's the same with pretty much anything, even
Yeah,
physical therapy. If we're doing cookie cutter treatments for everyone, they're going to work for some, but there's going to be a lot that they don't work for. And I
right.
think that's similar to what I've seen with some, regular diet programs and things like that that aren't specifically designed for that person.
Yeah. And there's a lot of them out there now, there are a dime a dozen now on social media, which I think is, it's good. If someone needs some sort of, I don't know, just program, not even a program, but just kind of like something to follow just to start getting them in the right direction. But if they're really going to have something that fits their exact needs and really gets to the nitty-gritty of what their body needs specifically, it has to
Yeah.
be something that's customized.
Yeah. I mean, I guess something's better than nothing if you can
Sure.
stick with that.
Sometimes it depends. There's some gnarly things out there that I've seen on the internet where I'm like, oh my gosh, I hope no one does what this, suggests.
Right.
But that's why you got to
Yeah.
filter through it.
Yeah. So maybe it's not something's better than nothing because I see that in scoliosis treatment as well. Sometimes I'm like, why are people doing this? Please don't do
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah.
that's good. That's maybe a topic for a future podcast.
Yeah.
Um, so let's kind of boil it down to what are three tips that you would give those living with scoliosis along the lines of nutrition to help someone like today to start working on something nutrition wise?
Mm. Okay. I think the first thing would be to um, balance the blood sugar to reduce inflammation.
Hmm,
And the way to do that would be, like I was talking about, we have these wild sugar swings that really create chronic inflammation. They can weaken bones, connective tissue. So, like I said earlier, I would prioritize protein primarily for adolescents and menopausal women. Those
hmm,
two need to really make sure they're getting good amounts of protein. But for anyone in general, healthy fats also, and then fiber at every meal.
hmm,
So again, I'm not talking about, we're not going keto, we're not going,
right.
I don't know, what are those diets nowadays? Only protein. You don't want to do anything extreme like that. We're just, um, balance is key. Honestly, balance is key. But in every single meal, okay, so the way to really stabilize blood sugar is every single meal that you eat, you want to make sure you have a protein, carb, and fat. Now, carbohydrates, when I refer to those, I'm not talking about your processed carbs. I'm talking about your
Right.
whole carbs, which would be like, quinoa, yams, um, Yukon Gold potatoes,
Hmm,
rice in certain circumstances, vegetables, fruits, those are your carbohydrates. And then your protein, hopefully, this is everything you eat, ideally, it should come from natural sources as much as possible, right? So your meat, if you can get it grass-fed, things like that, that's ideal. If you can't, do your best.
yeah.
We can only do what we can do. But eating your vegetable first and then your protein will help stabilize the carbohydrate the once you eat the carbohydrates, it'll help stabilize the glucose in the blood. And so
Hmm,
then you won't have the spike in glucose. And so that will help you balance your blood sugar. And then also eliminating processed sugars and refined carbs, that helps balance blood sugar as well. So because as soon as you ingest those, your blood sugar is on the rise. And it's going to cause issues, especially if you do that chronically. So, um, that would be the first thing. The second thing would be to prioritize nutrients that, especially for your patients, that support bone and ligament health.
hmm,
And so, what would be good for them would be calcium, calcium, magnesium, vitamin D3, and vitamin K2. Those are non-negotiables in my mind. So
yeah.
anyone with bone issues, back pain, things like that, those are the nutrients you want to definitely um, apply to your daily living. And then collagen-rich foods are really helpful. So like bone broth, like I said, grass-fed meats. This helps just keep ligaments and bone strong in general. And then omega 3s. So I like getting most everything from food. If you want to take supplements in addition, that's great. You can get
Hmm,
omega 3s from salmon, flaxseed, walnuts. That will help you fight inflammation and in the tissue essentially. So that's really helpful. The third thing I would say, and this is primarily for women, just because I work with women and I see this as an issue that is easily fixed, but syncing your nutrition with your cycle
Hmm.
for hormone balance is really helpful. So, for example, usually a woman's biorhythm, her cycle is 28 days. And so the first, you're going to start with menstruation, which is when you're on your period. And during that time, you want to eat a higher fat diet. And I'm talking about healthy fats.
Hmm.
This is going to be essential to really replenishing the minerals and that you will lose during your period and really focusing on hydration, things like that, which will support the hormones and therefore hopefully support bone health and things like that and inflammation.
Hmm.
Um, and then you move into the follicular phase. And in the follicular phase, you actually want to boost protein intake during this time,
Hmm.
as well as calcium. And this helps support bone building because that's during the time when women will build bone health more in the follicular and ovulatory phase. And then when they progress into the luteal phase, which is the last half of their biorhythm,
Hmm.
you want to go more high carbs. And I'm talking whole carbs because that helps with, well, I should say no anti, or I should say anti-inflammatory foods. So no processed foods, right? Because during this time, progesterone increases. And so, which when you are eating higher carbs during this time, it actually helps prevent ligament laxity and also pain flare-ups, and it actually will help decrease PMS symptoms.
Hmm.
So for women, I think it's really essential when they're in their reproductive years to start realizing that they are a different person from week to week to week. Their hormones are different, their metabolism is different, the way their body responds to food is different. So you use the food to um, you work with, I guess, the changes in the hormones from week to week rather than against it. And so being educated on what foods to eat during that time that will help better support the body is essential. And I think that's definitely one of my nutrition tips. And I know it doesn't apply to men, but it's just something that women, I think we've never been educated on that because the research hasn't really been there until recently. And so I think that's a really important um, thing to keep in mind for women in general.
Well, and that's not really something that I've seen a whole lot in the nutrition realm is syncing your nutrition to a cycle or to
Yeah,
your cycle like that. And I mean, it makes sense. Your body's using nutrients differently at those different phases. So,
right.
yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Does that change much when you get into like menopause, where we're getting into where maybe there's not a regular cycle, maybe there's maybe an absence of a cycle?
Yeah.
I assume that would change during that time.
It does, meaning that menopausal women no longer cycle with estrogen and progesterone anymore.
Hmm.
But it's crazy because their body still cycles, but it cycles with cortisol and insulin. So that's
Hmm.
why women who are menopausal, maintaining blood sugar levels is just so essential. And then also um, making uh, making sure that they're naturally going to be more stressed during menopause and after because with the decrease in estrogen and progesterone, also serotonin and dopamine decrease. So they're
Hmm.
going to feel more depressed, more anxiety, but there's ways to combat that. And that is also to eat based on the cycles that they experience with cortisol and insulin. So it's fascinating because their bodies actually experience the same sort of cycle, obviously in a different way, but where there's a time in their cycle where which is very similar to when a woman is on their period when she's menstruating, where they need to just take downtime, not push it too high because their stress bucket is a little more full. Their body isn't dealing with stress as easily. So and then they'll go into a similar like follicular phase that women who are menstruating or sorry, who are cycling experience where there needs to be an increase in protein intake to help maintain bone health and muscle health. And so for women in menopause also, I really stress resistance training. That is huge to maintain the muscle, but
Yeah.
also the bone as well. And just doing impact movements, plyometrics, things that most women in menopause don't want to do, but there's
Mhm.
ways to do it that will just, especially when you know it's beneficial for you as far as maintaining the muscle and bone health, which all women want. We don't want to be osteoporosis ridden, cashew backs or the curly kale backs. We don't want
Yeah.
those type of spines when we age. And so we want to maintain our health as much as possible, especially when we start to notice the changes in our bodies. We really want to be more proactive with what we can do. So, and I just want to say to women cannot heal in a stressed body. And us women, we live in a dopamine driven society, which is very male centric, and men thrive on dopamine. That's their master neuroregulator, which is great for them. But for women, we don't thrive in that type of society. Our master neuroregulator is actually oxytocin, which is the connection hormone.
Mm.
And what I find fascinating about that is that women need to connect, but yet we've disconnected from our bodies. We
Mm.
discard our bodies so easily. We'll be the first to say, "Oh, my body's betrayed me. I put on 5 pounds over the weekend or whatever, or I'm having pain here and there." But then we take a step back and we look at our life and we realize all I'm doing is I thrive off of a to-do list. I run around like a chicken with my head cut off. I'm always taking care of others before myself. And I'm here to tell women that is not a badge of honor. I'm sorry, ladies. Putting yourself last is nothing to be proud of because that increases stress. And when stress is increased, it increases inflammation, which leads to pain. And so, really, doing things that calm your nervous system is essential. And when I say put yourself first, I don't mean putting on your makeup for the day. I'm talking about really being with yourself, um, maybe meditating, sitting still, listening to music, making your environment more peaceful, um, and doing what calls to you in the moment rather than putting yourself on the back burner so that you can be there for everyone else. Not that that's a bad thing, but I just think that there needs to be balance in that regard.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times we think that health is something to achieve. It's like something outside of us, like either it's in the future or our health was in the past and it's something that we're not able to achieve in the now. And it's something we're constantly trying to, claw after essentially. But what I want to say to people that I think that health is more of an essence to embody. Because I tell my clients all the time to say to themselves, with everything they're doing, whether any choice they make, any activity that they're doing, to say to themselves, how healthy can I be in this moment? Or is this the healthiest, or am I being my healthiest self right now?
Mm.
And what that does is that whatever you do, I find myself, doing whatever it is. When I say that to myself, is this what my healthiest self would be doing right now? A lot of times it isn't. Okay. So then I'm like, well, what would I be doing right now if I'm my healthiest self? So if you find yourself like on the couch with some popcorn in front of a movie, not that that's a bad thing. That's fine. But
Yeah.
asking yourself, is this what my healthiest self would be doing? And you might say, well, you know what? Actually, my healthiest self would still be in front of this movie, but maybe I want to stretch. Maybe I want to do my stretches as I watch the movie. Or maybe I'd rather be going on a bike or on a bike ride or a walk or whatever it is. And as time goes on, when you make those little decisions from day to day based on what your healthiest self would do, what you tend to find is that you become your healthiest self through time. And then because you're embodying the essence of health, because health is not something outside of you, it's something that you're choosing to be in every moment. And the last thing I want to say about that is that um, your body, honestly, I think the body is the most incredible piece of technology that we have access to in this life. Um, I think people don't give it the credit it deserves. It is so incredible. It shows up for us every single day. It's always speaking to us. Um, and I just think that we, instead of honoring it, a lot of times when, especially when we're experiencing pain or fatigue or inflammation, we tend to punish it.
Hmm.
And when you see that those signals that the body's giving you as messages, then that is when I think everything can change for you. And so asking yourself, what is my body trying to tell me right now? And then listening for the answer. And I believe the body will inform you. And that's when health starts to be embraced and realized.
Well, and I think it's interesting because our bodies, they put up with a lot
Yeah, they
from
do.
from us, forcing them to do things that maybe aren't the most healthy for them.
Right.
And I think you're right. Listening to what your body needs um, can only help.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
And even when we're not listening to it and we beat it up, it still shows up for us, you know? It's
Yeah,
doing its best, the best it can. And sometimes the way it does show up for us is through the aches and pains, trying to get our attention to take a step back and see what is imbalanced in our lives.
yeah,
Because that's the only way it speaks to us, through
yep,
aches and pains.
yep. That's what I see all day long is
Yeah, I bet
the
you do.
communication from the body. Yep. So, well, that's great, and you're definitely passionate about discussing women and nutrition and basically giving permission to focus on yourself.
Yeah.
Because I totally agree with you. That doesn't happen enough. That needs to happen more. So that's great. So tell me what options you have for those with scoliosis.
Um, well, I have a couple programs. I mean, they're not scoliosis specific, but they are
Yeah.
focused on the whole body. So anyone with back pain, health issues, spinal issues, they're going to get help from that. And a lot of times with my programs, I will try, especially if you work with me one-on-one, I totally customize a nutrition program specifically for your needs. And so
Yeah.
it would obviously be different based on the individual I'm working with. But I also have a program called Diet Rebel that is not necessarily one-on-one. It's a group program, and
Hmm.
where we're focused on the totality of the body in so many different ways. It's a 13-week program. We focus on belief systems, emotions, um, how we're responding to our body, our relationship with our body, food, meaning nutrition, exercise. It's the whole package to really get down to the nitty-gritty of helping women transform their bodies. And what's interesting about it is the focus may be on fat loss, but what I find with my clients is that it's a total life transformation. You know what I mean? It's when you create a healthy life, the body responds. Well, I should say this, fat loss is just a natural byproduct of a healthy life
Hmm. Yeah.
in all areas. And sometimes, especially for women, we don't realize we're living an unhealthy life, meaning we're high stress, our cortisol is through the roof. We don't realize because we're living in a society that emboldens women that are high stress. And
Yeah.
so a lot of times it's just looking at those things and realizing, oh, I don't have balance in that area, that helps um, then give you the uh, awareness, which I think is the first step, awareness of what needs to be changed in order to have more balance. And then honestly, just fat loss and body transformation and health, increased health is just a byproduct of making those shifts and changes. So those are the programs I offer. In general, you can find me on my website at sarahsteed.com, and that's Sarah with an H, Steed like a horse. That's Steed. And that's where you can look into my programs more specifically. And then I'm on social media as well under the Sarah Steed. And that's I'm hopefully I'm going to be on there more frequently as in the near future, but I will share a lot of nutrition information on there, cycle syncing, metabolic health, things like that.
Fantastic. So people can go, and I'll put the your website in the description of this podcast so that people can access that. And
Perfect.
it sounds like great programs that you have already out there that people can utilize, especially women who are struggling with the things that we've talked about. And yeah, I agree. There's not really a scoliosis specific nutrition plan, but I think a nutrition plan that helps with bone health and spine health and just general health. I mean, that's what we're looking for.
Yeah. And that can be customized,
Yeah,
if that's a person's focus, that definitely can be created for an individual for their needs.
fantastic. So yeah, if anyone wants to learn more, they can go to your website and learn more. You had mentioned that you have a couple of offers for the listeners of the podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. So I also will do it's a 30-minute menu makeover. But
Hmm,
for the people in your podcast, or for your listeners, for the first five individuals that sign up for that, I will give them $75 off, but it will also be a one-on-one scoliosis nutrition consultation. And it won't just be a half an hour, but we'll go as long as the individual needs. What that will entail is like a personal assessment and also a customized menu plan that they can follow. It's normally $150. I'll give them the $75 off. And
that's
again, it's
awesome.
available for the first five people to book a session. And then also for anybody, I am offering a free guide. So it's the top five foods to fight back pain and inflammation. So it's just a
Fantastic.
free resource, and I will give you the link for that, and you can put that, I guess, wherever you put it. I don't know.
I'll put that in the description as well. I mean,
Okay.
that's great. Those are great offers. So if you're listening to this podcast and you want to take advantage of that, look in the description and you can take advantage of that. I think that's a fantastic offer and you don't want to miss that. So,
Thank you.
well that's great. We've heard of some great information, some good nutrition tips. I mean, I learned a lot from this. I'll tell you that.
Well, thank you,
That's
Dave.
that's fantastic. And one thing that I get when I talk to people about nutrition and I talk to them about going to see a nutritionist or someone who can help them with that, one of the complaints or the fears is that, well, I don't want to be on a diet plan that's going to restrict me from eating things that I like to eat,
Hmm.
or they feel like that's going to increase their stress level because,
Hmm.
and
And it
honestly,
will.
food is tied to a lot of emotions as well. So,
It
what
is.
what would you say to someone like that that has those questions?
Yeah, that's a really good question. What I would say is that food should not be an additional stressor.
Hmm.
And that's why the fear-based approach to food is something I really try to avoid. And the thing also is, if I'm telling someone to eat things that they don't want to eat, they're not going to do it.
Yeah.
Food is needs to be enjoyable, and it needs to be something that someone, it needs to be what a individual enjoys and likes, the type of
Hmm.
food that I recommend for them. So that's why I say that every single person's program is different, because I want to give them better options, but also foods that they will enjoy eating. And what I've found is that a lot of my clients will be like, "Ooh, I don't like that or this or whatever." And then they'll try it and realize that they actually like it combined with something else. And so, because another thing I've noticed as well is when you are starting to change the way you eat, your taste buds change.
Hmm.
Um, Now, I mean, I'm always going to be offering options to eating healthier versions,
Right.
because a lot of people, I mean, some people will come to me and be like, okay, I want to completely transform my life and my health, but I don't want to do anything different than what I'm currently doing. And it's surprising that people actually have that
Yep.
perspective. And that is fine.
Yep.
But the issue is, you are where you're at right now with your health because of what you've been doing. So you have to be open to other possibilities and other ways of being. And what I notice is that as people eat healthier, or they have a healthier. So here's the deal. A lot of times if people aren't wanting to change what they're eating, it is really helpful to not focus on food first, but rather focus on their way of being in this world. Because what I tell people is I don't teach you how to eat, I teach you who to be as you eat.
Hmm.
And so a lot of times that changes everything. And when you start I really focus on frequency and vibration. When your frequency and vibration start to expand, a lot of times you're going to want to eat a healthier version of foods, of a certain type of food. And the other thing is, if I'm working with someone that's only had a diet of fast food, I'm not going to immediately make them eat fish and broccoli for every meal, right?
Yeah.
They're going to gradually, and I wouldn't do that to anyone anyway, but they're going to gradually get healthier from where they're at. So I may recommend a certain menu for them that to any other person might seem really unhealthy, but to them it's not. To them it's a step in the right direction. And so I think the main thing is don't be afraid of food. I think our society has made food such a bigger issue than it needs to be because food, just like the body, is there to support you, not to cause you more stress. And so I do think it's just the approach that you take with food, and not necessarily making it a big boogeyman that's here to hurt you, you know. It's
Yeah.
actually it's amazing what food can do for the body.
And I think it can truly be medicine for the body for
Yeah,
what ails us. And I do think food has been vilified a little bit
yeah,
in, people are scared because they feel like eating healthy means they're not going to enjoy it.
yeah.
And that doesn't have to be the case.
No, that doesn't. And just like I said, with the macronutrients, it's important to have balance. And
Yeah.
so I would say that the body responds better to balance. Honestly, you can take two people and you can give them, I think I told you this earlier when we were chatting, but there's women I've worked with that are afraid of apples because they think an apple has too much sugar. So
Yeah.
really, that belief system that they have about the apple, that apple's going to act exactly like a Snickers bar in their body
Mhm.
because of their belief that it's going to hurt them or whatever. But then there's individuals I know that have, I should say, more of a liberal way of eating, that they don't eat as healthy, but they see all the food that they eat as nourishment. And so
Yeah.
whether even if it's a processed food, they have balance with it. They don't
Mhm.
just indulge on processed foods. What I find is people that tend to restrict themselves end up binging on,
Mhm.
they'll restrict themselves, they'll eat really healthy, and then they'll just go the opposite direction and the pendulum will swing and then they'll start binging on all the sugars and all the processed foods. That's not healthy in general. And
Oh,
so that's not a healthy relationship with food or your body
yeah.
or your belief system about food. And so that's why I talk about getting to the root cause of our beliefs. Beliefs are a huge aspect of how food is going to respond in your body and how you're going to respond to it. So, you wouldn't think. I mean, in the diet and weight loss industry, they talk so much about just like, oh, calories in, calories out, it's just food and exercise. It is so much more than that.
Oh, yeah.
Um, but it's also cool because when you see the bigger picture, then you realize, oh, I have so much more ability to shape my life and my body without just restriction and you know uh, without restriction or grit or
Yeah.
discipline, which is what we're told it's all about. And it is to a point, but that's not all that it's about. There's so much more.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, I even think back to PT school and it basically what was talked about was calories are all created equal, basically. Like, so calories in, calories out, you can just use a simple formula. And if you restrict 3,500 calories, then you burn a pound of fat. And I'm like, well,
I
that's,
couldn't disagree with that more. But that's just me.
yeah,
I mean, a calorie is a calorie if you just look at it as a unit of energy, right?
exactly. Yeah.
But it is so much more than that. I mean, logically, with common sense, we look at a calorie and we know that a calorie of spinach is not the same as a calorie from a Snickers bar.
Right.
Your
Right.
body's going to respond incredibly different to both of those.
Yeah, and it depends what it's doing with that and doing with the building blocks that come along with that
Yeah,
calorie too. Yeah.
right. Exactly.
So, well, that's great. Well, any parting thoughts, any quick tips or other thoughts as we finish up?
Oh, like there's always so much to say, but I would just say take a breath, n take a breath and just know that your body is there to support and love you through every aspect of your life.
Hmm.
And whether you're in a time of your life where things are feel overwhelming with uh, any type of physical issue that you might be having, just know if you change that perspective of my body's falling apart to my body's here to inform me and it's working for me. So let me work with it. Then I think that's when so many doors and opportunities will open up to you to heal in general.
Yeah.
And I think that the way we think about our bodies and just the thoughts we have in general are so, I think that honestly is truly the power, the hidden pill, if you will, the magic pill to any sort of shift in the body. It's
Hmm.
the belief systems and the thoughts that we have. And really, that's a huge core aspect of the work I do with women is getting to those belief systems, those underlying belief systems and thoughts that we don't even realize we're having, but we're just conditioned to have them. So we think that they're normal and they're
Hmm.
a part of life, and really they are the culprit to keeping us from where we want to be. And
Yeah.
so just taking a breath, realizing the body's here as your friend, I think is a huge win when we can do that.
Great. And working with the body instead of against it.
Exactly.
I think that's fantastic. Well,
Yeah,
thank you, Sarah. Thank you for sharing your expertise and for the offers for our listeners.
of
And we hope
course.
to see more of you on
Thank
this.
you, Dave. It's been an honor to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.